Chief Investigative Reporter Jeremy Finley first uncovered these failing brakes in certain Ford pickups. Jeremy, this recall doesn't address that problem?
That's right, Tom. It doesn't. In fact, it only focuses on a seatbelt mechanism that in some of these pickup trucks has proven to catch on fire. But those failing brakes that so many of the drivers blame on this, a leak in the master cylinder in the engine, it doesn't address that. One local driver's message to Ford: fix them both. Well, Demetria, right now I want to show you what's happening on this section of the Vegas Strip, and you can see for yourself. It is once again open for the first time tonight since the massacre. But look right across the street in one of the few places that the public can stand as close as they can get to the crime scene, and you can see at this moment they are holding a vigil. Do you think a man who's guilty of rape should be teaching children?
Please leave this property.
So we brought you here before. This is that storage unit in Brentwood where those thousands of medical records for women were taken by a stranger. If you remember, there were so many of them that they filled up that storage unit. But now come take a look. When you open the door now, you can see they're all gone.
A karate instructor for kids is not pleased with what the News 4i team uncovered about his past. Chief Investigative Reporter Jeremy Finley discovered how he and others are avoiding the sex offender registry, even if they've pleaded guilty to sex crimes against children.
That's Mark Cruz heading into work.
Are you Mark by chance?
He doesn't realize the News 4i team is also here to confirm he teaches children.
What age group do you teach?
I teach all of the from like 10 on, basically.
10 on.
No, about 7, 8, 9, 10 in that area.
We wanted to know because of this. In 2009, when he was 46, he pleaded guilty to statutory rape of a then 15-year-old girl. Excuse me, Mr. Cruz. My name's Jeremy Finley. I'm with Channel 4. Do you think a man who's guilty of rape should be teaching children?
Please leave this property.
So how does a man who pleaded guilty to a sex offense against a child end up running a karate studio for kids? Because of a deal the News 4i team found that keeps him and others guilty of the same crime off the sex offender registry. This is about avoiding the registry.
This is all about avoiding the registry.
Our investigation found state law allows plea deals for people who admit they're guilty of statutory rape. In Cruz's case, he was charged with aggravated statutory rape and pleaded down to statutory rape. And look at his case file. No contact with his victim and no sex offender registration. We found it happened in 2 other cases just this year in Nashville. It means Cruz doesn't have to tell any of the parents of his students about his guilty plea. And I can only imagine people will see this and think, this law isn't working.
Well, the law gives the judge the discretion to put the person on or not, but that's a negotiation tool.
Look me up. You won't find my name on any predator list.
In this undated YouTube video, Cruz says he's innocent and suggests he made the deal to keep his voting and gun rights.
Because I'm not a predator.
We had a lot of questions about that, but as you can see, you don't want to say anything in your defense.
I can't believe this.
He wasn't interested in answering them. After that night, we called Mr. Cruz and again offered to do an interview. He declined. A spokesman for the DA's office that made that deal says they're just following what the law allows. Our investigation into corruption on the Cumberland then took another turn. Sources encouraged us to look at the government agency where Gannon sat on the board, and specifically, we were told to investigate the executive director of that agency and his work habits. It's 2:45 on January 11th, and Luke Collins appears to be in hog heaven, literally. It took him 2 hours to get here to compete at this 4-H event at MTSU that started at 8 a.m. There's just one problem. While he was here, his timesheet shows he was working at his $90,000 a year position as the executive director for the taxpayer-funded Upper Cumberland Human Resource Agency. And he confirmed at the bottom he would not sign if it were inaccurate. There's his signature. Our undercover investigation began when people inside and outside the agency contacted us. While timesheets show him working, Facebook posts tag him out of state with friends. and documentation from within his own agency that claims to show how often he's not in the office. We brought all of our findings to directors on the agency's board. After you saw what I've shown you, what was your reaction?
Shocked, I think. I couldn't believe it.
For years, Collins has been in charge of this financially troubled agency that assists with everything from Meals on Wheels to transit for people without transportation. Is it in some trouble?
The agency lost money last year. I went into the red, I think, over $300,000.
With so much at stake, two sources within the agency confirm they've been shown this document, internal tracking of Collins' work habits over a 2-year period, compiled by James Starnes, the deputy director of that agency. It notes when he left early from work or didn't work at all. And also this, Collins' cruise vacation, a vacation referenced on Facebook. A friend of Collins wrote, heading out on a fun trip on July 4th, 2015, and tagged him and his wife. And when the friend returned 8 days later, she wrote, heading home. But look at Collins' timesheet between the 4th and the 12th. No mention of a vacation at all that week. Here's another picture of him on a hunting trip, posted on Facebook on October 24th, 2013. But look at his timesheet from that entire week. It shows he was working. When it comes to your own county government, if someone doesn't put down vacation time on their sheet, are they abusing the system?
Absolutely.
You wouldn't tolerate that either?
No, sir.
Collins agreed to an interview, but then backed out the night before. So we tracked him down inside this building, but he wouldn't come out. We're just simply asking to speak with him.
He has said no.
After reviewing our findings, board members say they had no choice but to turn it all over to state investigators.
I turned it over to the comptroller's office.
You were that concerned?
Yes, sir.
Have you noticed your rush hour commute seems to be worse this year? Tonight, a News 4 I-Team investigation shows why it might be taking longer to get home or to work. Get this, it has nothing to do with our booming population.
That's right. Our chief investigative reporter Jeremy Finley reports why new electronic devices are being blamed.
They say it happened fast.
It was like you flipped the switch. Just overnight, traffic went to being mediocre in the daytime to being heavy all over the country, not just in the Nashville area.
And these owners of truck companies say they know why your commute is suddenly so rough. No offense, you guys are making the situation worse for traffic too.
Yeah, we're part of it, but there's no way to avoid it.
Bottom line, truck drivers say this new device, required this year by federal law, means their hours have changed when they drive. Many used to avoid rush hour, not anymore. Do you think that this is a major reason why our rush hour is so bad?
I think it's a big reason.
Here's what happened. When truck drivers turn that key each day, the clock starts ticking. The law states they can only be behind the wheel 11 continuous hours once they start, with one 30-minute break, and paper logs had to reflect that. It's all to avoid tired drivers. But many stopped driving during morning or evening rush hours and made up for it late at night to reach their destination on time. Starting this year, paper logs aren't allowed. Federally required electronic devices now track trucks driving long distances, meaning there's no way to avoid a continuous 11-hour drive and no lengthy breaks during rush hours.
If I start this morning, I can't take off in the middle of the day and start again. I have to keep going until that time runs out.
So what would your rush hour look like if you weren't having to drive by all these trucks? Would it make that much of a difference? We came up here to find out. From this vantage point above the 2465 split, you can see all of the interstate. For the next 10 minutes, we're going to count how many trucks drive by, starting now. The grand total, 83 trucks in just 10 minutes. I wonder what you think about them saying, okay, we could avoid rush hour before, but we can't now.
You know, I think that's entirely possible.
Adrian Gildy's nonprofit works with the government to make sure truckers are complying with the new tracking devices.
It's possible that by forcing them to comply with the requirements, they are now driving at different times.
An effort by the government to make sure truckers aren't bending the rules, with an unintended consequence, a more congested rush hour for you. Jeremy Finley, News 4 I-Team.